Good day, everyone. It is I, Samuel Alexander. If you're here, chances are you read my book. Hopefully, that's why you're here. If you find me organically, even better. Hopefully, you will go read the book. There will obviously be spoilers because I will be reading poems that are featured in my series, I See Things in Blue. So, this one is the second book. Gavin. Gavin is one of Daria's best friends. Brief introduction. This poem's really short, so I can ramble for a bit. Um, he is intentionally written as to me anyway. Everything is relative, but intentionally as just your typical, teen boy, male. One of Daria's closest friends with another. Her book is titled Raylan. She's book 3. And basically, they help him navigate through his anxiety and, depression and self-doubt and things. And they're a big part of what helps him survive before he figures out how to survive on his own, before he lands and embraces himself. They're a very big part in helping him make it that far. So that's why they get their own book. Secondly, they got their own book, the friends, because the test run, when I tried to write just one book, that was pretty much the feedback. The friendship dynamics were underdeveloped. And in that instance, only two things can be done. You either beef them up or you zoom in and focus. And I felt they were too important to kind of not, to make the book too focused on the main character. And this was the logical solution. They all get their own book. And so that's where we are. A lot of these poems obviously speak to the anxiety theme of the entire series. However, the ones outside of that are in here, which may or may not be questionable, are definitely about being high. Because this character, they definitely do get high occasionally, but that doesn't really feature until they're like in high school. And yeah, so they'll be titled, like this first one's called Clouds, even though it has nothing to do with that. This is from the anxiety end. But that was the reason why I chose them, because I think for book 2 and book 3, which I'll mention again with book 3, the topics of them inside the book fit really well with when teens are experimenting and growing and doing those things without overstepping any kind of weird boundaries. But outside of that, if you try to explain them, it's just like it's very difficult to keep it within the box of, for me, being panic is my first mood. Like, is it safe? So I genuinely don't know. Here the poems are. There's way more, because there will be, bad language and, you know, innuendo and stuff like that, but in comparison to what's in the book, and that's why it was difficult to choose for this particular book. Like, I had to kind of like straddle the fence of, well, if they read the book, they're not going to be surprised that I chose these poems. But on the other hand, are they running the line to the end? So here's hoping that they're not. Um, so yeah, the poem's real short. I've rambled for 4 minutes. Like, I think I'm done. So this is the first poem, and I'm not going to count them. I'm just going to say this is the first poem this time, because content didn't work out well. The last time I gave up, but this poem is the first in the series, second part of the series, I See Things in Blue, titled Gavin, and the poem is called Clouds. A sun behind gray clouds is like love behind pain, always trying to push its way through to be seen, felt and received, but ultimately neither can force the will of the other. Both are at the mercy of nature, who decides when the seasons change. The sun and love are fighting in vain. Forever their glowing warmth, hidden, shall remain, till the universe decides to change the skies of gray. I don't know if this was the first poem, because I definitely deleted one from this book because I didn't like reading it and it just didn't fit. So it was two things, because some that I don't like reading are still here. So that's not enough. So it was a few things. But I like that it's the first one, because ultimately, if you've read the story, you note there's a part in the middle of the book, plus spoilers, where their relationship just dies. It kind of goes away. And like the poem suggests in the last line, till the universe decides to change the skies of gray, eventually the opportunity for it to heal prevents itself. Like, it's not forced. It's like neither of them know what to do, Gavin and Dario. Like, it's just fallen apart. And if you read the first book, you already know this has happened, but the books are written in simultaneous perspectives. So now you know what actually happened if you're reading Gavin's book, because it's what happened to him that changed the situation. And one thing that he does say in the book, when he doesn't know what to do with what's happened that forced this rift between them, is that he wants, if this is how Dario feels all the time, and he notices it, so he's dealing with some form of, not necessarily depression, but deep felt emotions for a situation that he can't fix and is upsetting him. And this kind of speaks to that, because yes, it does resolve, because it has to. The book is about Dario, and I need to make it to the 7th book. Is it clean? No, even when it resolves, it's not clean. But that's kind of how I feel like this. Referencing the sun, behind clouds, and love behind pain, is that the love never really went anywhere, but the pain unfortunately was on top, and they did not know how to fix it, especially Gavin, and they both wanted to fix it, and it just wasn't happening. And then something happens, like in the last line, till the universe decides, and they just seize the opportunity, Gavin specifically, to fix it. But it was still untidy. They didn't deal with the raw emotions. And, they're teenagers. And they actively chose, you know what, we're friends again. And they just moved forward, which means it's ultimately clouds come back. So later on, it's not going to go away until they face it. But at this stage in their life, at the beginning of high school, they're both, 14, they just ventured out of middle school to the next phase of their life. And within the first term, this is what happens. And it resolves within the first term. It takes a few months, but before the end, it fixes itself. But the situation, and it's entirely the foundation of the situation, is still not fixed. And I think this poem speaks very well to that. Also, I put the context in because the not being able to see and using the tablet, as you can see, I like to get my hands involved. I've got my knee up on the stool that the laptop is on, and it makes it easier to look forward. Now, in all fairness, it is easier to read through the tablet to change the pages, and the positioning of my laptop does not allow, because they put less outlets in them, so you need like a little hub so you can use everything. So now I can't use the mouse, because with the mic and the circle light and the camera, because the laptop camera is trash, I have used every available outlet. And if I use the hub, it's not guaranteed. If I'm using it for like external hard drives to stuff, things run smoothly. But the moment I use something I actually need to use, it gets a little touchy, like delays or slight glitches. And so, I'm going to have to buy a better one. That's where I'm going with that. With more C ports than USB ports, because that's the other issue. I only have on it, there's only two, and I need three to make this miracle happen. Everything else is your standard USB. And it's like, I didn't think about that when I got it. I didn't know I was going to be making videos. But yeah, that's why this poem is in here. And I think it fits, clouds, because again, on the theme of getting high, it literally says clouds. And on the other half of that, it speaks to the anxiety theme of the whole poem, and specifically to the fact that they are in a situation that they can't fix. So basically fighting in vain. But it is fixable. They just can't fix it at the time. And eventually, growth and time and moving on, even though it is just about 2 months, the answer, it comes. And I feel that's a more organic way of things happening, because even though they become friends again, the problem is still not dealt with. And it's not a big, neat tidy up. And so if you're reading it, you will be wondering, well, is he ever going to tell Daria? Really? Maybe he won't, because sometimes we do take things after they resolve and things are better. Sometimes it's just not worth it. In this book, that is the real debate. But neither of them, as young teenagers, just, growing into adulthood, are willing to tackle that and deal with it. They're just extremely happy to be friends again. So here we are, 12 minutes. I like that I can do these things in under 20, because even with rambling, it's still under 20 minutes, and I love that. So that was the second reading from the second book in my series titled Gavin. I See Things in Blue is the series, but yeah, you've been there. Called Clouds. And if you've made it this far, as always, thanks for stopping by.